So thank you so much, regardless if it's your morning, your afternoon, your evening, or very late night. We really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today. I am going to introduce myself. So my name is Fernanda de Oliveira. I'm a product marketing manager for National Geographic Learning for the very young learners and teens programs. And I am very excited to be here today with you because we will learn about how to provide a multidisciplinary approach in English language with very young learners, with examples from our very own series, Look and See, shared by its author, Susanna Reed. So welcome to the Whole Picture Multidisciplinary Learning in English Language Classes with Very Young Learners. Before we get started, and before I hand it over to Susanna, I just like to take a minute to go over some of the functionalities of the webinar platform. I know you are familiar from that, but I think it's always worth mentioning, right? So first off, the bottom of your screen, you will notice that there are several icons. First button on the left is the chat function. You're already using it. Thank you for letting us know where you're signing in from. It is always super exciting for us to see folks joining from all over the world. It's such a beautiful mix of people, cultures, languages. So thank you very much. Be sure to send your messages to all panelists and attendees to ensure that the whole group can read your message. And throughout the webinar session, please feel free to make comments, to interact with us as much as possible. This is always very exciting. On the right, you will see a Q&A button. So please use this to ask questions to the presenter or to me. We will do our best to answer questions as they come in, but we will also save some dedicated time at the end of the session to go through them, okay? And finally, we will be sending along a certificate of attendance and a recording of the session within 5 business days of the webinar. So stay tuned to that. You will be getting that through your email. So without further ado, I am pleased to introduce our speaker of today, Susanna Reed. Susanna is an experienced author and educational consultant specializing in primary and pre-primary ELT materials. After teaching in Spain and in the UK, Susanna has worked in educational publishing for over 25 years as a publisher, as well as a writer of ELT course books and readers for children around the world. Committed to exciting caring and multidisciplinary materials which inspire children's natural curiosity and creativity, Susanna is proud to be the author of National Geographic Learning's Look and See, a 3-level series for very young learners of English. So welcome, Susanna. Thank you so much for being here again with us today, because we already had a session earlier. And over to you.
Okay, so hello, and thank you very much for the introduction. I'm Susanna Reed, and it's nice to be here with you today. So as Fernanda has said, I've worked in English language teaching for over 30 years, in fact. First as a teacher, then as a publisher, and now as an author of courses and other materials for learning English children learning English around the world. I'm from and now based in London in the UK. And for anyone who's been to London, I live in the west of the city near a big park called Richmond Park. And we've seen in the chat box that everyone's been saying hello, and it's wonderful to see that we have people from all over the world here. So hello and welcome to you all. And thanks so much for coming. The title of my talk today is The Whole Picture, and it's all about multidisciplinary learning in our English language classes with very young learners. And here I'm talking about young learners at preschool and kindergarten. So if we think of very young children of this age, we know that this is a time of wonder and learning for them. They are learning to appreciate and understand the world around them, and they're developing the range of skills they need to find their place in it. They're developing speech and language skills as they learn to express themselves in their mother tongue, or tongues, because of course many children will be learning to speak more than one language right from the beginning. They're developing academic knowledge as they learn new information and experience and learn from the world around them. They're developing the cognitive skills that they will need to think for themselves. So skills that they need to interpret their learning, understand how things work, make connections between things, and learn to solve problems for themselves. They're developing their motor skills as they move and use their body to explore the world around them and accomplish tasks that they need to do in their lives. And of course, this includes gross and fine motor skills. And they're learning life skills and social and emotional skills, the skills they need to look after themselves, deal with their emotions, empathize with and get along with other people and make good decisions. So let's just have a little poll here. Fernanda, if you wouldn't mind queuing the poll up. So which of these areas of learning do you think is the most important at this age? Speech and language skills, academic skills, cognitive skills, motor skills, life and emotional skills, or all of them? You just want to click on an answer.
Yes, we have 40% of the participants answered already, so let's give it a few more seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see the answers coming through actually, so.
Let's give it like 10 more seconds.
Yeah. Well,
all right, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Can you see it?
yeah, okay. So actually there's a mix of answers in actual fact. Mostly all of them. And second one for life and social emotional skills, and third for speech and language skills. So that's interesting actually, because it's probably more mixed than I initially thought, because I suppose the premise of my webinar today is that I feel that all of the skills are as important as each other. Because I think that because preschoolers learn in a multidisciplinary way, I would say that effective English language teaching for this age range needs to have a holistic approach encompassing all of these areas of learning. And for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to be looking at each of these areas individually with examples. Though of course it has to be remembered that these skills overlap as children learn and they're interrelated, and we include them at the same time in an interrelated way as part of a holistic approach in our classrooms. So for example, using an activity where children are gaining academic knowledge about animals that we see in the day and at night, they're also using their speech and language skills as they watch a video and talk about the animals, their cognitive skills as they process and sort the information, their gross and fine motor skills as they first move around the classroom pretending to be the different animals, and then sit down to practice using scissors, pens and glue as they make their project, and their social skills as they share the materials and work together. So like the activity in the slide before, all the examples I'm going to use in the webinar come from the Young Learner programme Look and See, which I wrote and developed with the team at National Geographic Learning. So the first thing we're going to talk about that's obviously of great importance to us as teachers of English is the development of speech and language skills at this age, both in their mother tongue or tongues, as well as additional languages, and in our case, that's English. And it's important to think about both how development in their mother tongues will feed into how we introduce an additional language to them, and what additional considerations we need to include for the teaching of a different language, and for English in particular. So let's start with an interactive question. What are some of the ways that you think that young children learn their own mother tongue? And perhaps if you could write some of your ideas in the chat. How do you think young children learn their own language? copying from their parents, exposure, picture books, direct, listening, yeah, imitating through hearing exposure, yeah, okay. So my answers would be similar to yours, and I'm just listing 4 examples here, all of which, as language teachers, we incorporate into how we introduce an additional language. So children learn language when we talk to them, and they can listen to how language works. If children are going to learn the association between sounds and objects, they have to be given and hear the sounds first. When we talk, read, or sing to our children, we are giving them a sound-rich environment in which they can learn. And we help them associate sounds with their meaning by demonstration in ways that come naturally to us and we just don't even really think about. So for example, when we take them shopping and we get them to help us find different foods in the supermarket to put in our basket, or we take them to play with the ball in the park, when we read a storybook and point to the pictures, all of these ways we're showing them by demonstration what our words mean. They learn language by repetition and practice and when they're given encouragement. So when we reread their favorite story night after night before bedtime, when they sing their favorite song over and over again, and when we give them praise for doing things, so when they bring us the banana in the supermarket or they put their coat on nicely. And of course, it doesn't all come from the input of ourselves and others. Children learn by doing things themselves through play and interacting with others and by exploring and investigating the world around them. So in the case of language, they will be working out and learning what they need to say based on their needs. So how to ask if they can have a turn with a toy, how to tell you that there's a beautiful butterfly on a flower, and how to express that they've hurt themselves or dropped their paints on the floor during a craft activity. So how does this knowledge of how young children learn their own mother tongue cross over into the English language classroom? How do you as teachers apply it to your own classrooms? And perhaps you could write down again some of your ideas in the chat. Singing, that's nice, yeah. Songs are really, really popular. Pictures, similar words. Yeah, so using pictures to demonstrate meaning. Flashcards, films, English singing, drills, yeah. Music, okay, yeah. Dancing, moving, right, lots of, young learner classrooms can be such a fun place to be. Okay, so many of your answers would chime in with how I think that teachers of very young children will help them to learn an additional language. So we create a reassuring environment where all pupils feel comfortable and welcome. So we greet them warmly, we have routines so they know what to expect each day. We encourage them to listen to each other and to show mutual respect. We create a language-rich environment where students can hear English spoken and practice it themselves with songs, rhymes, games, and stories. We encourage our students and we praise their efforts, celebrating when they get involved in the class, as well as when they get something right. So good try is as important as well done. We provide a clear demonstration of the meaning of the language we use, with photos, images, and actions, and also of the activities we want our young learners to do, as we demonstrate the instructions and usually get involved ourselves. We build in plenty of recycling and repetition, both within the lesson and over the course of the year. And of course, we provide plenty of opportunity for students to play, explore, and begin to question and learn for themselves. And some of these things our course books will help us with. So in this example unit from Look and See, we have vocabulary introduced with clear visual support, grammar introduced in a game with language clearly modelled, chants, songs, and TPR, or total physical response, mime activities, and a video and project-based lesson where they explore how wool is made into yarn to make clothes. But of course, while we can apply many techniques informed from the acquisition of the mother tongue, there are differences in learning an additional language, and we need to take these into consideration as well in our English classes. So what do you think these considerations are? Again, perhaps you can write some of your ideas. What are the things that are different about teaching them a different language? Sounds like the mother tongue, yeah. Effect of the mother tongue, okay, producing different sounds, yeah. Okay, so the key one, of course, is that while a student's mother tongue is acquired naturally, an additional language is learned systematically. So a student will learn their mother tongue by total immersion from birth. It's just a natural part of their daily life. They're exposed to it every day and everywhere, and much of their acquisition of it is subconscious. But in contrast, an additional language, and in our case, we're talking about English, has to be learned systematically. Students will not be exposed to it in the same way. Sometimes their English classes will be the only times they hear and use English at all, and they may well forget a lot of it between lessons. So to help them retain and be able to use an additional language, they need a much more systematic approach with careful grading, language chunking and support, and plenty of repetition and recycling built in. And this systematic approach is something that a course book can help provide for a teacher with its carefully worked out syllabus and the step-by-step instructions in the teacher's guide, which we can see an example of here for Look and See. So the aims of each unit and lesson are highlighted together with the new and recycled language, and then also the notes for how to teach it and how to engage students to get the best out of their lessons. In addition, and many of you said this, the sounds of a new language are just different. When we're learning a new language, there are lots of unusual sounds we just aren't used to hearing or even just making with our mouths. So this is why a language course is so rich in listening and speaking activities to give students the chance to become familiar with and use these new sounds. And of course, in young learners' classrooms, this will include lots of songs, rhymes, and chants, like these songs taken from Look and See. So singing is great for learning the rhythm of a language, how words connect together in a sentence, and how the stronger and weaker sounds are pronounced. And of course, singing together also in a group can be good for those shy children who find talking in English difficult. Songs and chants also often use rhyme, which helps children focus their attention on the different sound patterns of spoken language. Because as rhyme repeats and combines sounds in predictable ways, it shows children the similarities in sound patterns, even if the words start with different letters. And it allows them to practice these sound patterns in an enjoyable way. But of course, we're not only talking about spoken language. Preschool children will also be learning their letters to prepare them for school when they will learn to read and write. So for those who use a different alphabet to the Roman one we use in English, this will be something else they need to be introduced to, as well as learning the sounds associated with those new letters. So we do this by incorporating the teaching of phonics into our classes. These pages are from the phonics program in Look and See, which introduces pupils to English letters and sounds in levels 1 and 2 using an animal alphabet, and then progresses to the first principles of blending letters and sounds together in level 3. And you can see from the example on this slide that we use the power of rhyme again in helping them to focus on sound patterns as they learn to sound simple CVC words out. So put, etta, v, etta, pet, vet. As well as speech and language skills, young children are developing academic knowledge as they learn new information and experience and learn from the world around them. Exploration and discovery are part of National Geographic Learning's motto of bringing the world to the classroom and the classroom to life. So you would expect that a young learners program developed by National Geographic Learning will seek to enhance a child's academic knowledge across a range of multidisciplinary areas. So I'll look at some of the academic topics covered in Look and See for my examples, But before I do that, it would be interesting to know the academic or real world topics that you cover with your students. So perhaps you can comment on that in the chat box. So the topics that maybe you do with your class: health, very important one, school, culture, yeah, movies, animals, seasons, weather, sports, colours, culture, jobs and stereotypes. That's interesting. Yeah, living with each other, emotions, superheroes. I like that. Okay, lots of things. Yeah, lots of good ideas, and some that we can use maybe next time. Okay, so for my examples of academic knowledge, I've broken them down into different areas. So first of all, academic knowledge includes knowledge about the world that children immediately see and experience around them. So for example, when they're looking and learning about the colours they see around them in nature, or in the paints and crayons in their art sets. Or it's knowledge about the food they eat and learning where it comes from. So for example, which foods grow as plants. Or learning about the people they see around them in their local community and the jobs they do. Or learning about the weather that affects their day, such as rain and where it comes from. Academic knowledge also includes knowledge of the wider world, things that children might not see every day, but they may experience in other ways. So for example, from books and stories, or from TV and other multimedia experiences. So for example, they might learn about the wonder of nature around different parts of the world and the importance of looking after it. Or they might learn about the animals that live under the sea. Or they might have a common preschool fascination about the dinosaurs that once ruled the earth. Academic knowledge is also knowledge that applies to different life skills and the school subjects that teach these. So in the examples in the previous slides, we've already had some science, social science, environmental science, art, and history topics. But for example, students will also be learning math skills, such as how to count and add up. Or they might be learning about music, how to play different musical instruments, and how they make these sounds louder or quieter. Or they'll be learning their letters and preparing to read and write. So all these different topics about the world around them will be feeding into their bank of academic or general knowledge and increasing the things they know and want to be able to talk and communicate about. When choosing academic topics to explore with this age group, it's important that we choose ones that are relevant to their lives and their natural interests, like the examples from the previous slides. But it's also important that they're presented in ways that spark our young learners' superpower, their natural curiosity, as well as reflecting how they learn through play and investigation with games and projects. And this is something that our course book can help us with too, with its pre-selection of topics and inspiring content, but all presented with graded language and tasks to help us exploit them in a way that our students can understand. So academic and real world topics are included all the way through Look and See, throughout the course in the photos and the activities, but also more specifically in the content connection feature at the end of each unit, which uses video and project work to spark interest and allow students to explore and connect with the topic themselves. So this example comes from level 2, where the topic of the unit is bugs. Students have already explored the topic in different ways. They've had an introductory TPR activity that sees them pretending to fly around the classroom like butterflies. They've learned vocabulary for different bugs, language for how to talk about them, as well as how to observe bugs in nature without disturbing them. But here, in the content connection feature, they are encouraged to investigate further into the topic and learn about the life cycle of a butterfly. So they watch a beautifully shot real-world video with graded language to support their understanding, and then they have hands-on engagement in the topic with a mini project where they make their own life cycle model. In order to be able to process academic knowledge, though, or any other kind of learning, children at this age are, of course, also developing cognitive skills, the skills they need to be able to think for themselves. So they'll be developing the skills that they need to understand things, remember them, use their imagination or logical reasoning and work out what might happen next, skills that they need to concentrate, interpret what they're learning, understand how things work, and learn to solve problems and create things themselves. They will be developing these cognitive skills naturally as they go about their busy young toddler lives, playing and learning about the world around them. But of course, as teachers, we want to create a learning environment that helps them to develop their cognitive skills. So how do we help very young children develop these cognitive skills? Perhaps you could write some of the ways that you do this with your young learners in the chat. Tasks, yeah, task-based learning. Okay, well, perhaps it's quite a hard question to ask in the after exercises, yeah. Okay, I'll move. Teamwork, yeah, teamwork and project, task-based learning activities, realia, games, graphs and charts, yeah. Okay, so basically involving the students in their learning. Lovely, okay. So I've put the importance of play as my first answer, as allowing young children the space to play underpins all areas of their learning. So children learn through play. When a child is playing, they are they're learning by trying things out and experimenting, and they're learning to solve problems as they try new things. And then when something goes wrong, they're creating and communicating about it. So for example, this boy is learning the best arrangement for his blocks. How many blocks and in what arrangement will work best to make a strong tower or building? And then what will he do if they all fall down? Well, hopefully he'll try again and learn to build them up in a different way. Also, we let children ask questions. Preschoolers are full of natural curiosity and fascination for how things work and why things happen. So we harness this curiosity by asking and letting them ask questions, especially open questions about why things are and how they work, the kind of questions which deepen their thinking skills and understanding. And as an example of this, we'll look at the content connection feature in Look and See again, which is built around posing and answering questions as a way of exploring a topic. So this example is from level 1 in the food unit. In the opening lesson and video, students are introduced to one lead-in word, apple, at the same time as seeing that apples come from a plant because they grow on trees. So they watch an introductory video about apples growing on the tree, learn the word, and then immerse themselves in the topic with a TPR activity where they mime picking apples from the tree and eating them. So they are learning the word apple and establishing or confirming that apples grow on trees. Then at the end of the unit, after they've learned about more food, they come back to the apple tree concept and dig deeper. They know that apples grow on trees. So now we get them to think more deeply about the topic by asking the question, how does an apple tree grow? They can think about it themselves first, and then they watch the content connection video to find the answer and then follow up with a class project. Here it's making a little mini book about the process of the growth of the tree. But of course, the topic could also be extended to growing projects of their own with food plants that are easy to propagate and start growing in class. So for example, bean plants or cress heads. We also include activities that help them to concentrate and focus. So as we all know, children of this age have short attention spans and will get bored very quickly. So it's important to have a mix of active and calming activities and not expect them to sit and concentrate for long periods of time. But that said, we do want to include fun, task-based activities that help them focus and develop their attention span, observation activities like the ones in these examples. So these are activities that have them seeking and finding with a purpose, identifying objects correctly, counting and describing, and playing guessing games. As people mentioned in the chat, task-based activities that need focus and concentration to achieve, but which also have a fun and puzzle-based appeal. We include memory games. Memory is central to cognitive development. We build on our memories to guide our thoughts and decisions and allow us to learn new things. So the regular repetition of favorite games, songs, and activities, as well as recycling of language that is a normal part of every preschool class, is one way we work on improving our young learners' memories. But we also include memory-based games of different types. So when we use flashcards to play matching pairs and what's missing games, or spot the difference activities and test your memory games, things that we do both in and out of the book. Again, activities that are fun and play-based, but which also have students giving their memory skills a good old workout to achieve. We include the kind of processing activities that help children understand the pattern and relationships between things and how they connect. So these are the matching and sorting activities that help them understand similarity and difference and how things connect together. And they're also the sequencing activities that help children understand what comes next, so they can learn to predict and in some sequences understand cause and effect. Research also suggests that movement activities aid cognitive development because the area of the brain responsible for motor skills, the cerebellum, also plays a role in our thinking abilities, including processing language. So when children are using their brains to move physically, they are also exercising many of the same neural pathways that help their cognitive ability. And motor skills are the fourth development area I'm going to talk about. So children are developing their motor skills all the time as they learn how to move and use their body. They need their motor skills to be able to explore the world around them and learn from it, as well as being able to accomplish the tasks they need to live independent lives. So this exploration of the world that having good motor skills allows will increase other areas of development, cognitive, sensory, and speech development, as well as fostering independence. So if we think, for example, about a young child learning about the rain, we can think about how they use their motor skills as part of this learning journey. So they go out into the rain, they feel it fall onto them, they might try and catch raindrops in their mouths, they see raindrops on leaves and plants, they might reach out and try and touch them, they jump and splash in puddles. There's a series of physical interactions which will make them curious about this fun substance, rain, which will in turn make them want to find out and then ask questions about where the rain comes from. So the physical exploration of the rain that their motor skills allows them to do results in sensory, speech, and cognitive development as they experience, then talk about, and want to find out more about the rain. And of course, I'm talking about the two types of motor skills here, the gross motor skills, using the large muscles in our arms, legs, and trunk, so that we can sit up, stand, walk, and run, and the fine motor skills, using the smaller muscles in our hands and wrist, so we can pick up and handle objects. And it's both of these that we'll be wanting to help children develop in the classroom. So gross motor skills will come naturally as children move about the classroom and play outside as part of the school day. But it's still something that we can develop in class with a mix of activities that has children sitting down at times and at other times getting up and moving around, using all that energy and developing their gross motor skills. So for example, with this action and movement song, Let's Be Active, children will move parts of their body up and down as they sing along to the song, repeating the value, let's be active. Or in the TPR activities, such as we saw with the apple tree activity, where students mimed picking the apples from the tree. Fine motor skills are key skills that we'll be aiming to develop in our preschool learners as we're preparing them for the skills they need to be able to access learning in school. Picking up and holding a book, holding a pencil and pen correctly, and drawing or writing, using different materials for art projects or other types of projects, or learning to use a keyboard. And activities to develop fine motor skills might include project work, such as this paper bag project that needs the dexterity of selecting and picking up very small items and using scissors and glue to cut and stick decorations onto a paper bag puppet, as well as using and manipulating the puppet afterwards. Or it might be practice in pencil control, first with just the drawing skills of holding a pencil and making a mark, to being able to draw a simple shape or follow a line, to being able to follow more formal pre-writing patterns from left to right, and then being able to form letters correctly, starting with tracing letters and learning the starting points and direction lines for forming the letters of the Roman alphabet that we use in English. Okay, and the final set of skills I'm going to talk about, but of course of crucial importance, are life skills and social and emotional skills, key to any educational program, but very much so in kindergarten, when children are so young that some of them will still be learning the basic needs of how to get dressed and take themselves to the toilet, as well as navigating the social skills of making friends and getting on with other people. So these are essential skills that they need as they learn how to look after themselves, deal with difficult emotions or setbacks, get along with other people, and make good decisions. So thinking of your own young learners, what life or social and emotional skills do you find that you have to help them with in your classes? Perhaps if you could put some of your thoughts in the chat box, kind of things that you help your young learners with on a social and emotional level. Anger management, self-control, respecting their peers, independence, collaboration. I mean, I think many parents, when they send their children to preschool, these are the skills that they want them to learn more than anything else, really. Okay, so yeah, being honest, following the procedure and rules, yeah, okay. So by life skills here, I mean the kind of basic skills they need to look after themselves and their things. So things like dressing themselves, washing their hands and keeping clean, tidying up after themselves and putting things away and taking care of their things. And by social and emotional skills, I mean the ones that they need to recognize and deal with their emotions, get on with other people, and make good decisions. And CASEL.org, which is the Collaborative for Academics, Social and Emotional Learning, defines these skills within 5 competencies which overlap. So there's self-awareness, being able to recognize your own emotions and thoughts and how they influence your behavior and having a positive mindset. Self-management, being able to deal with these emotions and thoughts effectively, how to manage stress and persevere when things are difficult. Social awareness, being able to understand others from different backgrounds and appreciate the role of others in society, family, school, community, and that's the local community and the global community. Relationship skills, so being able to get on with other people, communicate effectively, listening to others, collaborating, and asking for help when you need it. And responsible decision making, so being able to make good decisions based on different factors such as health and safety and the possible consequences of your decisions on yourself and other people. So how do we build developing these skills into our English language classes? So one of the ways that we do this is organically, as we embed these skills into our classroom practice in terms of the behavior that we model and encourage in class. So just some examples of things that we all do as part of classroom practice are that, we make our classroom welcoming, and inclusive by encouraging mutual respect and celebrating our differences, so everyone has something to contribute and everyone is listened to. We praise effort as well as achievement. So having a positive mindset and becoming resilient means that we have to be willing to give things a go and to be able to make and learn from our mistakes. We encourage positive social interaction in class and in the playground, so sharing materials and toys, taking turns with the equipment, waiting patiently, the importance of being kind to others. We establish rules and boundaries, such as what do we do at circle time, when it's time to listen to the teacher, when it's time to stop what we're doing and clean up, rules and boundaries which are just as important in developing a young learner's sense of security and membership of the classroom community as they are for classroom management, I would say. We help children learn to manage their emotions, so talking to them when they're sad, encouraging them to ask for help, sometimes showing them breathing and counting strategies when they get over emotional, or providing a quiet corner that children can use when they want some time to themselves. We give them responsibilities. So for example, giving out the crayons or worksheets, cleaning up or collecting things in, simple class monitor style activities that help them see how they can contribute to the class community. And we model good decision making, and help them see why their decisions matter. So for example, when they put on their warm coats because it's cold outside, or when we clean up a water spill on the floor because it will be slippery otherwise. They have to hold their scissors a certain way because they're sharp, and they don't say unkind things to others because it makes them sad, emphasizing the cause and effect of good decision making so they can see how their actions impact on others and the world around them. But while we do build in these skills organically, we can also make them more overt by making students aware of them and getting them to celebrate positive behaviours and skills with us. And this is another way that our course book, I think, can help us if it has a values syllabus built into the learning programme, which along with other values includes values that specifically introduce and develop life and social and emotional skills. So these are some of the examples from the values syllabus from Look and See. And as you can see, we have values related to life skills, dressing themselves, taking care of their things, being neat in the classroom. Social and emotional skills related to self-awareness and self-management. So using their imagination, being active, getting a good night's sleep to help control their emotions, trying new things and trying again. We have social and emotional skills related to social awareness and relationships. So making friends, sharing toys, taking turns, being kind and polite, being good to your family and helping at home. Social and emotional skills related to making good decisions. So choosing healthy food, dressing for the weather, working hard at school, and being careful in the sun. So those are some examples of the values syllabus and aims. What do we do in class? Okay, and Look and See, the values are incorporated into the song for each unit. So students learn a song, act it out, and do further activities in class associated with the value. So as in this example, exploring the life skill of learning to dress themselves, putting on their jackets and shoes unaided. So this is explored in a song in a unit about clothes, which reviews the new vocabulary and structures learned in the unit, but also enforces the value of dressing themselves. So children learn and sing the song, and the chorus reviews the language for putting on their clothes, as well as emphasizing the aim of getting dressed by themselves. So then, of course, you can also use the chorus of the song as a kind of transition song every time you want them to put on their jackets and shoes when they go out to play. So put on your jacket, dress yourself today. And you could also add another verse for taking these things off again when they come back into class. So take off your jacket, hang it up today. For the social and emotional skills of self-awareness and management, this example aims to help children learn to be resilient, learning that it's okay for things to take time and for them to make mistakes, and that with a positive attitude, they should try again and not give up when they're learning new things. So here the value is explored through two physical activities that may take a bit of time and practice to perform: climbing a tree and riding a bike. So the idea is that if something might be difficult, but that when you keep at it, the eventual success is even sweeter. And we can see the pride in the words in the chorus. Look at me, can you see? I can ride a bike. And this same principle can be applied to any of the activities that children may find more difficult in the classroom as well. Whether that is learning to write their name, learning to color neatly between the lines when they draw, or learning how to pronounce a tricky word. Things might be difficult, yes, and they take a few goes to get right, but we persevere and conquer them, and then we can take pride in our efforts and achievements. For social awareness and relationship skills, here's a very age-appropriate value of sharing your toys, as interacting and learning to get on with other children at their own age is a crucial part of the preschool experience. So here children learn and sing the exchange about sharing toys, which again can be repeated and used again in class as they share materials and toys out. So for example, with a pile of crayons, you could adapt the song to, let's share the crayons, 1 and 2, 1 for me and 1 for you. And for responsible decision making, we can look at the example of being careful in the sun. It's good to play outside in the fresh air, and exposure to sunlight is good for our health and the essential production of vitamin D. But at the same time, we have to take precautions against the consequences and dangers of too much sun, getting sunburnt or dehydrated. So in this song, children are reminded how to play outside in the sun safely, wearing a sun hat, applying sunscreen, and drinking enough water. And again, the chorus of the song can be repeated when children go out to play on a sunny day. So it becomes a kind of mantra for them all the time, reinforcing the good decision of taking care in the sun and why it matters. And just to show you also that in Look and See, the teacher's notes for each values lesson gives further support for building these skills into your classes, highlighting the importance of the value, as well as suggesting different ways that you can explore it further in the classroom. Okay, so we've come to the end now of what I wanted to say. Thank you all very much for coming to my webinar today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you and hear some of your ideas too. And if any of you have any questions or comments, I'd be glad to answer them or discuss them now. And while we're selecting some questions, I'm just also going to share my references and resources slide from the webinar. So if you want to read more about some of the things I've mentioned today.
Thank you, Susanna. And yes, we have a couple of questions here. So let's get right at them. So the first one, it says, when letting the students ask questions to develop their cognitive skills, how can we avoid the question asking session to get out of the topic and become chaotic due to the nature of young children?
Okay, yeah, so it's a good question. I think, again, I suppose it's all to do with establishing the rules and boundaries first. So if you usually, I suppose, when you would have these question asking sessions, they'd be round in a circle probably, and ideally you would have set up the rules so that they put their hand up when they want to ask a question, and that, you know, it's been set up what they do in question time, in circle time, really. So encourage them to ask the questions, but in a format where they understand what the rules and the boundaries are, I would say. All right,
absolutely. Thank you. Here's another one. Can these steps and I'm thinking of the steps by referring to speech and language skills, academic knowledge skills, cognitive skills, motor skills, and life skills and social and emotional learning. Can these steps be applied to teaching older students and primary students, for instance?
I would say so. I mean, I think that, I think it's probably at kindergarten, it's more that they are learning all of these, they're still developing some of these things so much. So like the things like fine motor skills I mean, they develop them all the way through their school, but it's really important at kindergarten because they're learning how to write, they're learning how to use scissors. So yeah, I would say that you can apply them all the way through, but probably, motor skills, maybe by the time they get to primary, it's not necessarily something you need to sort of be helping them develop quite to the same degree, I think. But certainly working on their increasing the critical thinking, letting them ask questions, dig deeper into the topics, understand the cause and effect of their decision. I would say all of those things are very important. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's another question that just came up as well. So if any of those theories can be applied to teenagers or adults as well, and absolutely yes, right? As you just said, but due to the age difference, there are some of the skills that are not as required. But yes, the critical thinking, the social and emotional learning skills, the real world topics, right? Definitely this is something that
yeah. I mean, I think social and emotional learning, it's just different. It's still essential. I mean, you get adults who need to learn a bit more empathy. So I mean, it's just, you might have an emphasis on a different thing, but I think understanding where other people are coming from, learning to stand, a favorite expression somebody used to use about standing in somebody else's shoes, to understand. I think those things are absolutely crucial at any age.
Absolutely. All right. Moving over to, because we have more questions coming up here. What are your thoughts on how language is taught as a L2 compared to how it is developed, acquired as a L1?
Okay, well, I suppose this went back to my initial point that about it being, it's a systematic, it's a systematic process, because L1, it's an organic process. It's around them all the time. So L2, they're not going to be surrounded by, unless they're growing up in a bilingual household, in which case, it's more like a kind of another mother tongue, really. But that's why I sort of say that, the systematic teaching of a second language is where a course book can really help, because it just like breaks it down into sort of chunks and like gives you a kind of syllabus to work through. And I think also just as well, I think the big thing about that, the space in the classroom is just so important, because they won't necessarily get the chance to use language outside it all the time. I mean, hopefully they will. You can do some kind of, activities that include parents in that, but really as much time as they can in the classroom to practice using that English is an important thing.
All right, thank you. And here's another question. What is your impression out of multicultural classes resorting to their native language all the time?
Okay, well, again, I would say it comes again to the rules and the boundaries that you set up in the class. I know a lot of teachers like using little puppet that only understands English. And because I am British myself, I found that when I was in classes, people would assume, I just wouldn't let on that I could understand what they were saying. But I think if you speak the same language as your students, then something like the puppet is really useful, because the puppet is the one that only speaks English. And again, it's just going back to, I've seen some really nice kind of pictorial rules and boundaries charts that you can get, which are all done in a very positive way, but it's like, English only. I think, having said that, I don't think it's a problem to let some L2, it's a part of their sort of learning. I think it can be quite a useful tool, especially if you're talking about values and social and emotional learning and stuff. It actually can be quite useful to use the second language as well. But there are times when you want to just focus back on English, and then I think it's, again, rules.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the puppet idea, right? Because then, the puppet
Yeah,
is always allowed to speak English. So that is a good way of, and if you need to switch a little bit, right, and using the native
yeah,
language.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think increasingly, actually, there are much more movements in terms of a bit of switching is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think, especially as well as we're thinking of like English as being so much more of a global language, it's going to become the fluidity between different languages is going to be quite a kind of common thing, I think, really.
Excellent. Well, we see a lot of thank yous,
Okay.
and that the information has been very useful for all our attendees. So thank you so much, Susanna.
Well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. It's been really nice to be able to talk to you today.
I know, absolutely. So before we sign off, I want to thank again for taking the time to join us today. And before you leave, just a few things to mention. So immediately after the session, you will be directed to a feedback survey, to a screen where there's a survey. So please share your thoughts with us. This is very important. This information is always useful for us to plan the upcoming webinar sessions. If you are, we've seen a lot of great examples and great resources from Look and See, one of our very young learners, National Geographic Learning Program. So if you're interested in learning more, I am adding here in the chat box the webpage where you can find information from Look and See specifically, or if you want to find a local National Geographic Learning sales consultant next to you, you can use this link. And last but not least, be sure to join our online community for teachers of English on our social media channels. We offer all the time up-to-date information about events, upcoming webinars, practical sessions, classroom tips, exciting real-world content, and also new product information. So there's a lot going on. There's some amazing webinars coming up this month, during this month of March. This is just day one of the month. So make sure you check our webpage and sign in for our upcoming sessions. One more time, thank you very much. Hope you have a great day, rest of the afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, and hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.